Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Craven, the hunter, who uses all the methods of the animals.
On December 13th.
Once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
Are you like your father?
He puts evil into the world. I get rid of people like him.
Who's next?
Witness the making of a new Marvel villain.
You think you're some kind of honor. You're a criminal, just like our father.
Aaron Taylor Johnson is Craven the Hunter. Rated R. Under 17 on a minute without parent. In theaters December 13th.
Black Friday is coming, and for the adults in your life who love the coolest toys, well, there's something for them this year too. Bartesian is the premier craft cocktail maker that automatically makes more than 60 seasonal and classic cocktails, each in under 30 seconds at the push of a button. And right now, Bartesian is having a huge site-wide sale. You can get $100 off any cocktail maker or cocktail maker bundle when you spend $400 or more. So, if the cocktail lover in your life has been good this year, or the right kind of bad, get them Bartesian. At the push of a button, make bar-quality cosmopolitans, martinis, Manhattans, and more. All in just 30 seconds. All for $100 off. Amazing toys aren't just for kids. Get $100 off a cocktail maker when you spend $400 through Cyber Monday. Visit Bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.
You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Nick, Aussie Dave here after the Oxford debacle. There's a preface to what I'm going to say. I love Bomber, but today it leaves me to seriously question about his abilities as a coach. On to my thoughts. I am fuming, frustrated, livid, and ragingly angry. The uninspiring first half ended with a valuable goal that our poor performance probably deserved. Now, once back in the dressing room, it was obvious that Coburn couldn't continue. At this point, Ivanovic and Langstaff would have been filled with hope and childlike glee that they would get a full 45 minutes to show their stuff. But they were spurned by Bomber. Their hope turned to despair. They now know how Imaku feels. Bomber selected the bluntest attacking tool in her armoury, Bradshaw, presumably on the thinking that we'll go more defensive, keep her shape, and we'll win 1-0, right? No problem. This is against a team that conceded 9 goals in the last 2 games and 6 in the last home game. The inevitable happened. In the first half, we had 9 shots. In the second half, with Bomber's new tactics, we had 2 shots in 50 minutes against a team low on confidence and really lacking quality. This is damning evidence of Bomber's incomprehensible and wrong tactics. This is not 2020 hindsight. When Bradshaw came on, I thought, as many Wall supporters would have thought, what the fuck is Bomber doing? The inevitable happened and Oxford scored, leaving the farcical situation of bringing on Langstaff in the 89th minute. Look, let's be real. We're not going to get anywhere in the playoffs this season. The key aims are to stay up and to develop our newly acquired talent. Ivanovic, Langstaff, Kelly, and anyone else I forgot. Today was a serious missed opportunity. Just a shout out to Aziz's good performance, Jensen's first half save, and another masterclass from Tanganga. But this was all overshadowed by Bomber's poor tactics. I can't wait to hear Bomber's post-match comments. I'm hoping for a large dose of mea culpa, but expect the players to be highly criticised for the Oxford goal. This match actually reminded me of Bomber's last game, last time around when we drew 1-1 at Luton. I'll be surprised if your voicemails don't give universal condemnation of Bomber's tactics. But keep the faith. Come on, you Lions.
Oh, good morning, Nick. Barry Mooney. Long time no speak. But please, can someone explain to me how Tom Bradshaw gets in that Millwall team? Again, I watched it yesterday, and he offers us nothing, or just a running round the pitch. How does he get in over Langstaff? I'm afraid it seems to be it's the old favourites with Neil Harris. It's his favourite. But I know there were stories going around when we signed Langstaff that he didn't want him. It wasn't one of Neil Harris's players he wanted, so I'm just wondering if that's part of it. But please, again yesterday, we should have been outside in that game. They were pretty poor. What's happening? We should be putting these teams away. And then last 15 minutes, we could have lost it. And as for their goal, what was our defenders doing? 4 of them. Not one of them went out and got in front of the fella to stop him. You know, I'm disappointed. You know, we should be putting these teams away. You know, I've had my moment this morning, but please get someone on there from the club. Get that Neil Harris on to explain how Tom Bradshaw gets in that team. Please. All the best, Nick. Nice talking to you. Cheers, mate.
It was excellent today. And Josh Coburn was class, and the game changed a lot when Josh Coburn had to come off the pitch, unfortunately, at half-time. It was a big loss to us. We are 9 unbeaten, you know, and I think, you know, I have to remind myself of that, but I think some of the travelling fans need to remind themselves that as well.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to a Monday morning special Achtung Millwall. The 2 voices you just heard there. First was Aussie Dave, all the way from Perth in Western Australia. Big shout out to Dave. I actually missed off your message on the previous show. And a stop press insert from Barry Moon. Big welcome back to the show, Barry. And the second one was, of course, Neil Harris. Joining me to chew over the cud of that 1-1 draw. Much debated, much spoken about. Controversial 1-1 draw at Oxford is Harry Warren. Big welcome back to the show, H. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. I was better before I heard Aussie Dave's voicemail, but yeah, we're good.
Very poetic, by the way, Dave. Very poetic, almost literary. I mean, I think the thing is, H. I mean, Dave, I think sums up a lot of the criticism that's gone on online. You would have seen it. I think everyone's seen it. It certainly was in the bulk of the voicemail show that I did yesterday. The choice of substitution, Coburn who was injured, and maybe in the ground there was a bit of a reaction at the end of the game, but I don't think many people were aware that Coburn actually landed heavily, I think, and gone off injured at half time, hence the introduction of Tom Bradshaw, who came on with a leg strap. Where do you stand on this choice, Harry? Because I mean, obviously, much flows from that moment. Many people saying that was a bad choice. Dave just mentioned, as have many online, you'd have seen it, Ivanovic or even conceivably Langstaff coming in. The choice of Bradshaw over Ivanovic and Langstaff, what do you make of that, mate?
I don't have as much of a problem with that as other people seemingly do. People seem to have decided that we've spent money, and because we're Millwall and we've spent money, that these players must be good. I'd describe Alex Haldridge, his hit rate as 1 in 3, probably the previous head of recruitment. And I wouldn't say that this recruitment team have blown me away with how good they are. It is a new era. We buy young players. Now, this idea that we have to play them all the time is a fallacy. Whether or not they're good enough for the Championship, we don't know. I would argue that there seems to be... I'll address other players before I get to Langstaff and Ivanovic. Amarku and SA last season, right? SA played 7 games last season in the Championship. 7 games, right? So he clearly wasn't ready last season. But he's ready now, and he plays. He's played every game, every minute under Neil Harris this season. This fallacy that Neil Harris doesn't promote youth, it's ridiculous. He does when they're ready. So he clearly doesn't think they're ready. We've gone 9 games unbeaten. We've beaten Leeds, we've beaten Burnley. And the minute you don't beat Oxford, Millwall fans are swishing their bollocks about as if he's like the second coming of Ian Holloway. It's it's so detrimental. Like, I want to clear this up. We have no God-given right to be in the Championship at all, let alone push for the top six. It's very ridiculous. Now, we can all have our own opinions on whether Tom Bradshaw's any good or not. Now, I don't know. You don't know. None of us know. Fucking Langstaff could be injured. So could Ivanovic for all we know. They could be carrying knocks. They might think, the game's 1 here, I'm going to go 1-0, which Aussie Dave touched on. That has been our tactic. Score first, defend. Right? This helps when you have 6'7" Jake Cooper to head everything away. We don't have that. We concede a goal. It's the same as the first 2 games of the season. We played lovely open football, which everyone will forget because it was 2 defeats or 3 defeats. We played open football. We were involved in 2 7-goal thrillers, right? But we fucking lost and get no points. It doesn't matter whether you score 1. It doesn't matter whether you score 8. If you keep the other team from scoring, you win football matches if you score, right? And there seems to be this fucking weird thing that we don't play nice football. It's defensive football. I couldn't give a fuck. No one seemed to give a fuck when it was Gary Rowett and we were winning 1-0. It gets tedious after a while. But do you think we're that much better than we were 12 months ago? Because we've signed a £3 million fucking Serbian that no one had heard of before we signed him. Or we signed Langstaff. And I want to bring up something on Langstaff. If Langstaff was that fucking good, why was no one else in for him? That's the question. We never ever sign someone if anyone else thinks they're fucking good enough, do we? Very, very rarely. We sign loan players and we turn them into Millwall players while they're on loan. That's tends to what happens.
Can only speak from what I've seen of Langs. I didn't know him before, and you're right. No one really knew Ivanovic. He's still young. We've seen him in moments. I'm thinking of the goal. Was it Derby, the equaliser? He came on, finished it really nicely, which had to be, it wasn't an easy chance to put away. Many strikers might have missed that. He done it. I can fully accept that he might not be the finished article, but I suppose in that situation with Coburn, who I do rate actually, I like Coburn. I think he's a physical battler, and I can see why he's Neil's first choice. I can actually get that. And in the first half, after a pretty cold start, but I mentioned this in the other show. I want to mention it to listeners now. That 12:30, having come off that debacle at Pompey on Wednesday night, we've got 2 days later. Early morning starts, I dare say, to get to Oxford. Middle of nowhere, Harry. A very dry, soulless place. One end missing for the car park.
Bleak League One nothingness.
Yeah, with the View Cinema off in the distance, it does make you feel a bit like you're playing on, Isthmian South East level. But anyway, that's what they've got to do. So it's a cold start, but I thought we clawed our way into that game quite nicely by the end of the first half. We went ahead, but we'd had chances, and I thought we were looking much, much better as the first half wore along. 2 crucial turning points in the game, wasn't there? One was the loss of Coburn at half-time. I don't think there's much that we could have done about that because he just landed hard, I think. I haven't seen the game back again, but from memory. And then the loss of Sean Hutchins, who, gives you a very steady. I know we've lost Jake Cooper, but for a period. But the loss of Sean Hutchins at that point, I just think create a slight gap because the goal when it the equaliser I'm talking about when it went in, followed that substitution of Murray Wallace, and I initially, Harry, and this is mea culpa. I'm going to borrow Dave's phrase here. I thought it was Murray Wallace's fault. I think I'm going to pin the blame on the goal. Now, having others have pointed me to it, is Joe Bryan, who just seemed to be standing around like he's waiting for the Oxford bus to take him back to the station. He doesn't seem to follow his man at all. I think I was a bit harsh on Murray there, but I think the blame lies elsewhere for that equaliser.
What's Reg Spurs? Murray Wallace is a convenient coat peg to hang Millwall's social wheels.
Well, there was just so much time and space given to a player that could clearly found his spot very well. I think the bloke finished it nicely. So, hats off for the finish. But if you're given time and space at that point, a lot of players can probably do that with no challenge. And that's what went missing there was the challenge. I think that's down to Joe Bryan. Do you agree, having seen the goal yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I also think that the Sunderland goal's quite similar in the sense that I don't think Joe Bryan had a particularly good game against Sunderland defensively, especially in the first half. And he's not, what's the right word? For all of Joe Bryan's good points, and people assure me there are some, I'm still struggling for them. Apparently, I must be wrong. So for all of Joe Bryan's good points, his bad points are he's not a Millwall defender, and for
No, he's not. No.
the fact is that when we play Danny there, we defend better, but we can't go forward on the left hand side because he's got no left foot, bless him. So Danny's left foot is for standing on; it's not for playing football. So that's fine. That's not a knock of Danny McNamara. That's just where we are.
He's being played out of position.
Yeah, when we signed that left back from Liverpool. Well, I'll call him a left back, but Liverpool don't use left back, so he'll be a left wing back. And that we don't really play that, so I can't imagine that coming off. But yeah, I think you're right. They're quite similar in the sense that do we clear our lines better when we have a 6'7" behemoth fucking heading everything away? And when people, in my block, I won't obviously use the Oxford away game, but in my block in general, moan about what Jake Cooper can't do, I'd point to what Jake Cooper can do, and Jake Cooper would have cleared that ball. Do you understand what I mean? Especially the one for Sunderland as well.
Someone would have been on it with Jake and Tanganga in full flow. I just think there was probably a moment of confusion with the new change around with Murray coming in, but certainly Joe Bryan, I think, looking at that clip back again, I think he was the one that went went missing. He was just standing there, and I don't get the Joe Bryan question. I mean, I can get the attraction. We've seen a few fullbacks. Scott Malone springs to mind, but also they mentioned Chris Hackett, who apparently is coaching at Oxford. They mentioned that in the half-time show yesterday, on Saturday rather. And he was a similar kind of player, a very good player going forwards, but defensively probably not so strong. And I think that I can get the attraction of a decent attacking defender, so to speak, but you've got to do the defensive side. I just don't see enough of that from Joe Bryan. And this what we're dancing around here, Harry, is the criticism that's been made. Whether you're talking about Bradshaw, talking about Bryan, is the selection policy that Neil's going for. Now, I suppose Neil would say he hasn't got many choices to choose from. Do you think that would be his riposte in that situation?
I think his riposte would be, I don't have many to choose from, and we're 9 unbeaten. Now, other people will go, well, there's loads of draws in there. But then you'd point to the table and go, we're comfortably better off than what we normally are come this point of the year.
I'd agree with that. And he makes that point in that clip. He makes we're 9 unbeaten and reminds the travelling support of that. And that's... I never really like it when managers dig out fans because it never really works. But I think he's entitled to a viewpoint that if you're going to get booed, but
I don't think that's panto booing. But I think it's panto booing from that frustration is a bubble over from a lot of those people would have been the same people that went to Portsmouth on Wednesday night.
Pompey, hardcore Millwall,
right? So I can't sit here and criticise the Millwall away support for being fucked off, for being 1-0 up and giving away a goal, that's quite soft in the grand scheme of things and not going for it. But I would turn around and say, come on, at least 20% of the people that went there, was it not the most Millwall fucking thing ever to drop points against Portsmouth and Oxford after having such a good fucking couple of weeks at the Den? It's just what we do. Sorry to I don't know what the demographics are recently, Nick. I remember we used to have a demographic where most of our listenership was over 35, right?
Mostly they're over 35 blokes, Harry.
But I'm reaching out to the 16 to
the TikTok kids.
The TikTok generation, right? You have no divine right at Millwall Football Club to win fucking football matches. If you think this is bad, I will introduce you to Nigel Spackman and fucking Colin Lee. And the people who go back further than fucking me can say Dave Tuttle. I can bring you up a lot of bad shit from the 2000s, ladies and gentlemen, the last 24 years, let alone going back before that. We have to capitalise when we're good. And I think that's very clear. Our home form is going to be absolutely crucial. I agree with Aussie Dave in the fact that the aim for this season is not to get relegated. Absolutely. That's starting point one. Was it likely? I don't think it was. I never think it was likely because I saw how good we were the end of last season. Did I think we're a playoff side? No, I don't think we're a playoff side. Do I think that we can be near it. The longer we go on being near it, the more it becomes possible. Yes, because we're a very streaky football club. Of when we're good, we're very good, and we seem to, as we all know, that Millwall boulder starts rolling down from South Bermondsey towards fucking Wembley, and it picks up speed like the Arkansas Chuggerbuck. It just keeps going, and we sort of did that already with the five, with the beating of Burnley, the beating of Leeds. We could have arguably beaten Sunderland. I almost think Sunderland was up. That second half was almost our best performance of the season.
Achtung, Millwall.
I mean, I've been thinking about Neil Harris's managerial style over the weekend because obviously, I think you're right. I mean, a lot of people said this in the other show that they're not booing him; they're booing the, as they see it, the choices made in games. So, if most people weren't aware that Coburn was carrying a knock, then they might wonder why he's been substituted, and that may, in the heat of the final whistle, cause a bit of a reaction. I don't know, but I'm thinking about Neil Stokes. I think he's a very good manager in certain situations, Harry, and we touched on the Burnley game, the Leeds game, and the Sunderland game. These are all second, third, and fourth. I'm just looking at the table: Burnley second, Leeds third, and Sunderland fourth. Three big clubs with big resources, and each have been, to one extent or another, either contained or beaten at the Den. And those are the kind of classic big-time Millwall situations. Probably, if you want one definitive example of it, it's the Leicester Cup game, it's the Everton Cup game too. These are big, cup-tired, underdog versus David v. Goliath kind of qualities to it. And that's where Neil Harris really comes into his own. He gets the Den and the cliche, but the whole kind of hysteria that is mustered in those situations. That's great. It's what we live for. Those moments, those big time situations, is what we all live for. I just sometimes wonder whether the colder the Oxford at 12:30, everyone's had a hard couple of days where it's just harder to motivate yourself. There's no driving, the force of nature from the terraces. Mostly Oxford fans there. It's all a bit dead. Just raising and finding the tactics for those situations is where he's an area that he probably wants to develop, Harry. I would think he's probably not. It falls a bit shorter there. Would you say that's a fair summary of him as a style, managerial style?
Well, yes, but that's just Millwall, isn't it? I don't think any managers really managed to ever really do that, apart from Gary Rowett, who was the opposite, who would look after the 2,000 travelling Millwall fans by winning 1-0 and then fuck off 15,000 at the Den by calling it Millwall chaos. And I know which one I'd prefer, and that's kind of where I sit with this. Neil Harris gets your bread and butter Millwall performances in the sense that Neil Harris will make sure that the 15,000 go home bloodying the nose of the people that look down upon us from their ivory towers. Now, does that mean that when you go away from home, you have to take? We can't be good all the time, right? There's this.
Not even Pep Guardiola is good all the time with his 6 Premier Leagues.
Yeah, seven in a row defeats. I mean, they must be the most out of form team in the fucking pyramid, mustn't they? Anyway, we digress from City. Once I remember us playing them once, and they had a fucking lurid kit. I must have been about 10, and then they've gone on to European superstardom, and we went on to sign Duncan Watmore. I
think it's an interesting point though, because I think it comes back to Neil Harris in a strange roundabout way, in that no one wins forever and no one loses forever. You have good times, you have bad times. We've had a pretty good time of it, Reece. We're still on a 9-game unbeaten run.
I haven't looked at the table. Where are we in the table?
We're 10th at the moment with 5. Well, we've got the game in hand now with Pompey, which still to be played later.
Hand. Words that fucking strike fear upon Millwall fans. If we could only win that game in hand, and always fans, when you're playing well, you add those 3 points, didn't you? Let's be honest. We all were going to go. Well, I am. I'm going right.
If we were to win that game, if we were to have those 3 points, Harry, we'd be equal with West Brom on 28 points. They might edge us out on goal difference, depending on how much of an impact we can make on that. But we're basically just in the 7th and 8th. Well, it's currently 10th, but we'd be just below the playoff slots, which is pretty good. And I think that's the point that Neil made in that post-match
And I
I
think
think 9
that's
unbeaten.
that's fair.
And flirting with the playoffs going into January was probably what I would have said would be a fantastic achievement at the start of the season. And we will have to contend with knocks and injuries because we just don't have the numbers and depth of squad that other teams can muster. But we do have steel in the side, and I think that's what is evident from those performances. We've made the Burnley and Leeds ones particularly. We do have steel in the side. It's just a question of patience, I think.
I think, well, question of patience. You know what I think it is, and I say this, I do say this. I think it's a question of patience and frustration. So since the Blackburn debacle, right, that everyone
Yeah,
now
yeah.
knows that was our big chance. Let's get the elephant out of the room. If you win that game and you get in those playoffs, we're equally as good as Luton, I think, that season, in terms of we'd have been
Yeah.
difficult to. It would have been a shit fight playoff final between two teams that didn't want the ball. Would have been quite happy giving each other the ball for 90 minutes, and it would have ended up going to penalties, and no doubt Jake Cooper's penalty would now be orbiting the sun. But that's not the point. We may have had playoff heartache. By not getting there, there's a whole generation of fans, and I think my dad struggles with this because my dad is of a similar vintage to yourself, and
Mm.
has seen us in the Premier League, has seen us go to an FA Cup final. You know, things that his dad never got to. Well, his dad got to see us do the first division, but they don't get.
Yeah, yeah.
So everyone that's come after you, sort of my generation, you know, your 30 somethings and even the 20 somethings, the for me, us getting to the playoffs, because obviously it's only happened once, like the championship playoffs has only happened, what, 2001, 2002?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can remember it, but
Over 20 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
over 20 years.
you know, it's not a given. So us getting there, I try and akin to, I don't know, that's like us getting into Europe, right? Just to get to the playoffs. And for us to be in a playoff final, it'd be like being in a Champions League final, because that is the most that we can, in this current realm of Millwall, the most we can achieve to. We're not going to win the championship. We don't have a budget. That's never going to happen again, right? And everyone who's older, I know you had Sheringham, Cascarino, fucking Briley, Erlock. These players were good enough to walk into top 10 sides of the first division at the side, and you got promoted, which you should have done, right? You didn't know that at the start of the season, but you did. So you compare that to now, we're nowhere near as good as that side, and football is a lot more competitive and a lot more difficult to recruit players and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
Millwall would have to get in the playoffs this season, would have to have a great January and rely on not getting injuries to key players. Jake Cooper, Tanganga, you know, it goes without saying, the fucking boy wonder, the star boy. If the star boy is sold in January, what do we do? What do we do? You know, that had the Millwall, you know, for all the money in, you know, for all the silver in Christendom, Nick, what would Millwall do with the money that is going to be talked about? We'd fucking waste it, because that's what Millwall do. But
Spend it on ne'er do wells from foreign countries that we don't know much about. Let's go back to Ivanovic, because that's been a big point of contention. He's clearly a development. He's a project at the moment rather than a regular pick. Would you have put him on Saturday, Harry? I mean, how would you approach that situation if you were in Neil Harris's trainers on Saturday?
I'd
Coburn out.
I mean, I'm a football dinosaur. I like 4-4-2, so I may have taken Honeyman. I may have taken Honeyman off and brought Langstaff and Ivanovic on. I may have done that, but again, I don't work with them every day, and I'm assuming there's a reason. There must be a reason, right? There's got to be a reason. There's a reason for everything. There's a reason that Joe Bryan plays. There's a reason that Ryan Leonard hasn't gone to right centre back. There's got to be a reason. Whether it happens going forward, that, you know, again, I think it's about. There was a thing going around. I'll take it back to the Leeds game about this. I remember before the Leeds game, he dropped Denor after playing. Denor played really well against Burnley, and he dropped Denor. And
I thought that, I think he did, and I took that to be a rotation. You know,
absolutely. But a lot of people on Twitter didn't take that to be a rotation. They took it as Bomber's tactical ineptitude. We're obviously compared to other sides, our rotation affects us more than others. You know, Burnley rotate and they bring Zion Fleming off the bench. And for all what you think about Fleming when he was here the second season, you know what he can do from his first season at the club. You know, that's the difference between Burnley, a team that are in the top six, where you compare that to Millwall. And maybe other than centre midfield, where I think our rotation options are pretty decent. Really, I don't. There's a lot of clamour that Billy Mitchell's shit. I don't really buy into that, but
I don't believe that.
no either. So you've got Wintle and Billy Mitch, and you've also got that Dan Kelly that we've signed, that we've seen, from what I saw against
Seen very
Royal.
little of Dan Kelly, Harry. But I mean, he seems to have. Well, I don't know. I presume he's in the under 21s or reserves or whatever the case may be. There, but you just haven't seen him at all. Maybe there's a surplus of midfielders at the moment.
Well, there's four. There's the standard Gary Rowett. I mean, we had 8 midfielders at one point, and now I think we've got 6. So we're slowly getting rid of them year by year. But it's you're not gonna, when the team's winning. There is a question: when the team's winning, or when the team isn't getting beat, would you change a winning / undefeated side? Would you naturally? So I think it's
traditionally not. It's the thing that you don't do, isn't it? Traditionally in football law, you don't change your winning sides. That's the this is an injury or there's some cause, something forced upon you. But it's a very Millwall situation where we're not quite we're not in a crisis, but we've got the manager being booed at the end of a 1-1 draw that leaves us 3 points short or 5 points short, sorry, of the playoff zone with a game in hand. Not exactly a crisis, is it? A very Millwall situation.
I mean, I would say that Neil does seem to be getting a lot of it is this Millwall thing, isn't it? That because they're Millwall, it's a blessing and a curse. Like, you get us, but also that means therefore you're allowed to get shit earlier than any other manager would have got shit.
And to twice the level that anyone. I mean, we tolerated Rowett for years and Holloway for a good year and a half before it really turned on him. But for some reason, if you're Millwall, it seems to be that you are judged by a higher standard. I mean, you see it with players. I think of the likes of Ben Thompson and others. We can all name a few names from the past, but they do seem to get judged by a higher standard, and it's a very strange trait. I think also, I mean, you touched on it, I think, at the start of our conversation, Harry, about the strange internet-driven world that we live in now, where people can actually talk about we're going to go to Oxford, which is never an easy journey, listeners. No, I never think of going to Oxford and, at any point as a given, and we're going to, what's the goal spread going to be? 2, 3, 4, and you hear this stuff and you think, I don't know. I mean, generally speaking, if you had said to me at the start of the game that you get a 1-1 draw out of this, I probably said, well, that's probably about win your home games and draw your aways if you can do. So it probably fits into that.
And then you'll probably be in the playoffs come May. Yes, I'm fully with you.
But yeah, there we are. That's the modern scene, isn't it?
I think I get the criticism. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's beyond criticism. I don't think he'd say that himself. Like, everyone's got a shelf life. Everyone's got a criticism. But I think the people, you need to give your head a wobble, didn't you? Like, when you come in, we were going to League One quicker than what we were under Dave Tuttle. We were fucked, right? And what have we really done since then? We've got before the league. It's probably changed now because we didn't play and obviously we've drawn. But we've got one of the best points return extrapolated across the 2 seasons. We've been fantastic since February. They've had an off day, and you've gone fucking mad as if they ain't won in 5. Okay, they've drawn some games, but let's have it right. They're not. It's not Millwall if we're not going to draw against Oxford. It wouldn't be Millwall if we didn't get beat by Portsmouth in 2 games that you look at the end of the season and go, there's 4 points. Those 4 points would have got us to the playoffs. We did the same the season we missed out the first time Neil was in charge, when Archer decided to forget how to goalkeep for a fucking year. You look back at the Sunderland ones that are on Sunderland till I die that they chuck in. There's missed opportunities throughout the club's history of why we don't quite get there. My point is that this season is almost a free hit because we all, before a kick of a ball, thought if we got to mid-table we were doing quite well. We didn't think, the squad's not as good as it was and it's older than what it was when we got to the edge of the playoffs. And we're somehow 5 points off the playoffs with a game in hand. For normal Millwall shit starts where we don't really start winning until October and then, we sort of build up pace. We're kind of up with the pace. And another thing, I've not watched anyone whether it be watching now, because you can watch as many games as you want with this new TV,
Yeah,
as long as you don't really care what time you're watching football. Fucking good awful half-12 kickoffs and fucking weird times. Anyway, it's really odd. But you can sort of watch other teams in the league, and I watch them, and I'm not scared. I don't feel the league's like, oh, they're going to fucking blow us away, or they're going to fucking. I just feel confident that we'll compete. Not that we'll win, but we'll compete. And
the win with a shout. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'd agree with it. I'd agree with that.
Even the Watford game. If I look back now, we were missing Tanganga. With Tanganga, do I think we win that game? Yeah, I probably do. It's probably like the same. Yes, same Saturday. Do I think we win the game if we've got Jake Cooper and Tanganga at the back? Absolutely. Do I think they've suddenly become a partnership that are a top six? Tanganga is, without a fucking question of a doubt, the best centre back in the league. I'm sorry, I don't care what anyone tells me. I've watched him with my own eyes. The bloke's a level above. How he's at us, I have absolutely no idea. Enjoy him while you can. SA, exactly the same. We've got two brilliant football players playing in our team. Enjoy them while you can. It's as simple as that. If we get up this season or we get into the playoffs, it's a fucking great season. If we finish in the top 10, it's a good season. That's what Rowett was doing a couple of years ago, and it was taken as a great season. Yes, the club seemingly are buying younger and younger players. We'll have to see whether it works out. I have a terrible suspicion it won't go well, because we're not like a Brighton, we're not like a Palace, we're not like a Brentford. Our fans, the minute you fucking misplace that ball and you don't chase back, you're called a cunt, and it takes 6 months for people to stop calling you it. And that's quite character destroying or building, depending what way you want to think about it.
Whichever way, I think maybe that's the Millwall type of player thing that so many refer to in their recruitment. I would agree with that. It did make me laugh, just to close us out, Harry. But the commentators, I mentioned this already, but they compared us when we went ahead on Saturday. We went one goal up. And they started talking about how we're very similar to Atletico Madrid.
I remember this.
I haven't followed. I don't follow Atletico, but I do believe that some of our fans have got the Real Madrid syndrome. They think all we got to do is turn up at Oxford, and we're going to swish through the place and bring the 3 points back down the M40 again afterwards. But
there you are, there you are, admin team. Clip that up. Use that to speak to your mate Max and all the people from Wall Talk. You can fucking clip that up. Next season, Millwall will be playing in all white after Nick Hunt's pronouncement that Millwall are the South Bermondsey Galacticos.
Real Madrid. But I think this is the expectations are driven by the internet. In some ways, it's been a very bad thing for life generally. Very good in some ways, but I was thinking back to when I first started going. I mean, if you had Mill drew one each at Oxford, the likelihood would have been that you wouldn't have gone to it. You just would have picked up the result next day on the Sunday papers and said, "Oh, that's all right. We've got a point. We'll watch Millwall next week at home again."
Yeah, you'd have watched CFAX and seen the equaliser come up on page number. If it was been scoring games above you, you'd have been on like page 6 on the
and that would have been there
on the flick round, and that would have been it.
But there we are. Such is life. Such is life. Harry, I want to say a big thank you for joining me this morning, mate. It's good to talk to you again.
No worries, mate. Always a pleasure. Come on, you Lions. We haven't even touched on our next game, Nick. I mean, I know you're trying to wrap this up, but it's the return of the coat.
It's Joe Edwards with Frank Lampard.
What a meal. I mean, just in time for Panto season to kick off properly, we have a real Panto villain turning up at the Den. It's like fucking all your Christmases have come at once.
Is he a Panto villain, Joe Edwards? He was too soft, and he was like the boy that your daughter brings home on a Sunday. He says, "Oh, he seems all right, doesn't he? Don't see many harm in him."
Oh, fuck off! He was getting us fucking relegated. Why are you doing this man fucking...
Well, that's the real harm, isn't it?
Yeah, he's not doing any harm. He's just introduced her to heroin. There's no harm here.
He's introduced her to a poorer way of life.
Exactly. It's great, this fucking mental passing out.
Lower category of living.
Yeah, it's lovely. We're playing now passing football for the back.
Stevenage
smashes it into the centre forward.
We're all going to Harrogate next week away.
Yeah, but he's a lovely man who looks like a geography teacher who's been left behind on a school trip.
Oh dear, yeah, that's going to be interesting. Coventry at home on Saturday. You're right, I haven't touched on it at all, Harry.
Do you reckon?
Well, what Holloway style is stay in the dugout.
Yeah.
I think Lampard will be he's the main face there, isn't he? I think Joe Edwards is probably at his best as a coach.
Probably done us
and
a
not
right.
with any.
To be honest, it's probably done us a right turn because he probably now fucking don't get paid by us anymore. It's probably ended his what did he sign? A 3-year deal?
Was it 3 years, blimey?
I don't know. That's kind of a normal standard managerial
Well, he went back
contract.
when he left us. He went back working for England. Did I see him at Chelsea briefly as well, doing some work there?
He might have worked. That's probably his level. When under 21 football, where it's all quite nice and pedestrian, and then they come to the real world of professional football, where people are on win bonuses and it actually fucking matters. You know, that kind of.
And you've
shit.
got some horrible carpet fitter sitting right behind your dugout calling you a cunt.
Can't you see what's going on, you useless cunt?
Yeah, so Millwall versus Coventry on Saturday. The return of Joe Edwards. I don't know if there's going to be a sufficiently hate mob forming for that. He's in no way in the Ian Holloway category, Harry, is he, in terms of hateability? But he did have us on the fast track going downwards, that's for sure.
No, he's not in an Ian Holloway thing, but I think Lampard will take the firelighter. He might get a few of the embers. I think that's the way I'd see that bonfire of shit going. I mean, to be honest, Jody Morris for me would have been a bigger villain because I remember Jody Morris coming here as some kind of amazing fucking centre midfielder.
Yeah.
And all he seemed to do for his entire 18-month career at the Den of running around and pointing where other people should be and never quite getting there himself. You know, but that's kind of Millwall over. I think it's interesting because I think it actually is probably the ideal tonic to the Oxford game in the sense that it will be panto, it will be nasty. It's Christmas, everyone would have had a beer. If we score first, it will be fun. But all of that comes into insignificance in the fact that I think we're going to have to play Murray Wallace and Tanganga at the back. So
I can't wait. I'm actually looking forward to it. It'd be nice to get back to a proper game of football. Let's write off Oxford listeners. Let's all move along. Let's get the pantomime going and get back to Mill as we know it and love it, Harry.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't go to Portsmouth because I was meant to be working, and then I didn't have my annual leave runs January to January, so I'm kind of running out of days. Obviously, end of the year, but from sort of January onwards, I will be very much hoping to make the rearranged fixture because I've never been to Fratton Park, so I would like to go down there. But now I'm a bit circumspect of if it's a night game, maybe they're struggling to turn all their electric substations on. Maybe they should rearrange it for like
trains.
Easter weekend. Maybe I'm not too fucking sure. Do you know what I mean? It's fucking so pathetic.
They tend not to want it as a day fixture for some reason. They want it midweek, so that I think they can get shot of everyone very quickly on the last train out of town. But
it's weird we have that effect on police forces, isn't it? I
don't know why.
I don't know why. I've never seen any trouble at Millwall in my entire time of going. I've never seen it. Angels.
I think there was a great post, I might have seen it yesterday, Danny Baker put on about the whole Greg Wallace kerfuffle. I wish that they'd stop posting that picture of him with the Millwall roaring lion on his chest. It's given us a bad name.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting on the, whatever your rights or wrongs of whatever's been said, which I'm not too far across. I would turn around. The only thing I've seen to noticed, apparently it was a comment from 12 or 13 or 14 years ago or whatever that's resurfaced. I hate to think what down the line people will go back and hear some of the stuff we've mentioned on these shows, and we have to get a PR company to do our public apologies of some description.
Hopefully, I'll be long gone by then, Harry.
You will be. I'll be fronting.
You'll be living with it in your 70s.
Yeah, I'll have to be fronting up in my 40s, late 40s, going. I don't have to fucking carry on with this, do I?
These were different times. Nick came out of the 60s and 70s,
answering questions in a parliamentary review.
Of course, no one would talk like that now. Yeah. Anyway, there we are. Keep away from Greg Wallace. Big thank you, Harry Warren. And industrial language. Big thank you, Harry Warren. Talk to you again very, very soon, mate. I hope. Take care.
And you, mate.
podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.